So, Emil, give us our lesson.
Okay, so good morning. I'm gonna talk about the balance of payments in Mexico. So first, the balance of payments is a statistical statement that summarizes and shows like all the economic transactions that a country has like with the rest of the world. It also shows like it tells companies whether to invest or not in that country, and also it tells the market potential of a country. The balance of payment composition. Well, the two main accounts are the current account and the capital account. However, now there was a new composition of the balance of payment, which says that now the capital account can be inside the financial account, and also the errors and omissions and the official reserves account. Well, the current account have everything included, like exports, imports, and some transfers, such as the remittances. Well, the financial account, all the investments. Well, now I'm going to show the balance of payments. It's in Spanish, but well, here is shown that the current account had a deficit of 3,662 by the end of the third trimester. The reason for this I will explain later, but basically it's because we have more imports than exports, and also because the Mexican economy depends a lot on the remittances, which I would say is not good. And as for the financial account, here, well, we had a surplus of $14,845 million. The reason for this is because we have more investment, like foreign investment, than we do in like investment like from Mexicans. So
yeah, let me just. In Spanish we use 14,000, okay? In English it's 14 billion.
okay.
There is the big difference between the English versions and the Spanish versions, and we have to be careful about that. Whenever you're going to be speaking in English, you will be saying 14 billion, 3 billion, whatever.
Okay.
But remember always that in Spanish it's really 3,000 million, okay? Because our billions are billions of millions, and the American or the English speakers billions are just thousands of billions. By the way, this is an important thing that you have to remember. Whenever you're talking with English-speaking world people, you will be talking billions, when in fact what you are talking about is thousands of millions, okay? So for an American, it's very difficult when we say to him, it's $1 billion pesos, because we are talking 1 million, okay? And he's thinking 1,000 million. So this you have to learn from international business. Whenever you talk with Americans or whoever in English, and you mention billions, it's 3,000 million, okay? So here what you will be saying is 3 billion, 3.6 billion or whatever, okay?
Thanks. So as for the financial account, here is well, this makes sense that the manufacturer sector has the major investment in Mexico. Of course, well, I think it makes sense because we have good wages, we have a lot of the population pyramid is towards the youth, so people, investors find attractive this. And also, yeah, because we need, like maybe we have a lot of the raw materials and yeah, like everything, but we need more like manufacturer sector in our country. Okay, and for the portfolio investment, It is shown that we are in 23 billion. And the reason for this is that there is free rate is very attractive in Mexico because we have 4%, whereas, for example, the United States have only like 1 point something %. So investors find very attractive this, so that's why we have a lot of investment in Mexico. Also, in the area of other investment, which is here, it is shown public and private debt. The public sector, I found this very interesting, has debt, which I think it wouldn't be that way because we as citizens are paying like taxes, and also the government gives like to the public sector like an amount to spend on. So that means that the government in Mexico is actually spending more than what they should. So this should change. And as for errors and omissions, this account like shows all how is it called? The informal transactions that come into our country. By this I mean all the drug traffic. So here we have 9 billion. And this is also bad because our country, for everything we do, we need to pay the ISR, like Impuesto sobre Renta, of 30%. So that would mean that if this was actually recorded in some of these, we actually, in other accounts, we could have and recollect around $3 billion.
Be careful here. This is the balance of payments. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so what it will be registering really for you will be the transactions that take place between our country and other countries. Okay? So in fact, what you're going to be facing here is really what is the kind of investments that are taking place on the public sector, on the private sector, in terms of international transactions, not in terms of the fiscal transactions. Okay? So in many ways, what you're facing here is not a picture of the public sector by itself. What you're looking at right here is what people do between Mexico and the rest of the world. Now this is really, when she used this part of the balance of payments, she's using all the financial transactions of the balance of payments. Okay? This is money going out and in of the country. Money, cash, not goods and services. So the one part of this that is not here, okay, will be...
I have it there.
Okay, it will be the merchandise trade, which is completely different. Can you go one back just to show something? One more, please. Where you have the band, we have the, I'm sorry, here. Okay, what this is showing you is something that's very important. It is the amount of foreign direct investment coming to Mexico, okay? This is what people are interested in investing in Mexico. And there are two ways of doing the investment in Mexico, which she's showing right here. Okay. One of them is really to say, what is that investment going into? What is happening? What is the interest of the foreigners? Where they want to invest? And what she was saying is something which is very important. Because our country has a kind of quality of workers, lots of investments coming into Mexico go to the manufacturing sector. We were discussing last class what's happening with Audi coming to Mexico. Okay, this is the kind of investment we're talking. Okay, they come into the manufacturing sector, and this kind of investment they are making. But there are also other kinds of investment coming. So some of them will be coming, like Walmart, to make investments into the commerce, the trade sector of the economy, and that's where they are coming. Okay, they're making this kind of investment. And then there will be financial services. These are the banks.
These are the, the stock market houses, things of that sort. They will be making investments there. This is buildings, and so you can see where foreign direct investment is coming, and what is really the sectors that are being attractive to foreigners when they invest in Mexico. This tells you where that investment is coming from. So what you can see here is that the most important is the United States. The United States represents, in terms of foreigners investing in Mexico, 49% of the total. So it is important to understand, and we will discuss later on why is it that this makes sense. We have 49% there, we have 16% from Spain, and then we have the rest of the world basically doing the other things. But the fact that we have 49% here is because we are neighbors, yet we also have NAFTA. And so there is a lot of combinations where many companies will be based in Mexico to produce in Mexico and sell in the United States. And therefore they are taking advantage of the fact that NAFTA allows the products to come from Mexico into the United States without paying tariffs. And so it makes sense to invest in Mexico, lower costs, outsourcing, offshoring. We're doing that between the two countries thanks to NAFTA. Okay? Sorry, you were.
Should we have more foreign invest from Canada because of NAFTA?
Well, that's one of the questions, why they are not really investing more than 4.5. Okay? But if you look at the accumulation of investments between Canada and the United States, you have over 50% of total foreign direct investment coming from the NAFTA countries into Mexico. Okay? But the question will be why? Why are we more attractive to Germany? Well, it could be. I'm not saying that it is, but it could be because if you're going to invest in plants like Volkswagen, this, that, what have you, then you make those investments and you're still serving the American market from Mexico. But don't forget, we have not only NAFTA, we have other treaties. And as we have more and more treaties, people are very interested in investing in Mexico, to produce in Mexico and sell in the other countries.
And also because Canada is the United States neighbor, so countries that do invest in Mexico is because it's close, but because they're also very close, it wouldn't make sense for them to invest a lot.
Yeah, but then the question we will ask is why Spain is even farther? And probably lots of this investment is going into the financial sector. I mean, you will have to find the connections later on, okay? All that this is showing you is a picture of the moment of what happened. This is basically January, September of last year, what was happening at the time. It's a photograph, okay? Just a photo, no more. And what you see is how the composition of the investments that are coming to Mexico, and what is the composition also of the countries. People coming into Mexico, investing from those countries. As we saw in the last class, the question is whether this really can tell you anything at all on who's where from. Because if I'm Nokia and my telephone is being built in these many ways, am I a Finnish company or what kind of company am I? But once you become multinational, hopefully, you will learn to have no nationality, okay? What you want in a company in many ways is no nationality at all. And what you will expect is the most competent person should be leading that company. Whether he is American, French, Mexican, Italian, whatever nationality is irrelevant for the company, or should be irrelevant for the company. That's the reason why we have now a person called Manuel Medina Mora, who is the co-director of Citibank for the world, okay? He's Mexican, he's a banker, he started in Mexico, he ended up working for Citibank when Citibank was absorbed by, or Banamex was absorbed by Citibank, and now he's working in New York. He was in charge of all the Latin American business and the trade business of Citibank, and now he has just recently been appointed co-chairman, well, not co-chairman, co-director for Citibank. So, you can reach those levels, no problem. Thank you, I'm sorry, keep going. We are going to find out corn at some point.
Okay, so...
But do you understand this thing then, all of you? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, say what?
Well, I mean, not exactly, but I get an idea.
Either yes or no, okay?
Yes.
See, the one thing that you cannot do is come out of this class and say not exactly, exactly yes or exactly no, okay? If it is no, fine.
You're going to be the next one presenting us and explain to us all of this. What is it? What is it? Portfolio investment. What does it represent?
How much the countries are investing in Mexico?
No?
In bonds?
Yeah. We went into discussion last time and we said that one of the key elements that we will be looking will be something that's called country risk. The other element that will go tied up to that is exchange rate. So last class we talked about these two things. What Jamel was saying right now is people are interested in investing in Mexico, and so we have a 23 billion surplus, or a 57 rounding up billion surplus January-September, okay, on what is called portfolio investment. Remember, these are dollars, okay? These are not pesos. So what we're talking about right here is foreigners were willing to bring into Mexico the equivalent of $57 billion in portfolio investment. Okay, what's portfolio investment? It's the investment that you will find in what sectors? Okay, we said last time, stock exchange. Now, what do you do in the stock exchange? You're going to be trading what? You're going to be trading bonds, and this will be government bonds, yeah? Yeah, but we also have bonds of private sector companies. Okay. These are called what? These are obligations. Okay. I'm lending those companies money. I'm lending the government money. I'm not buying the government, and I'm not buying the companies. I am lending to those companies, and what they give me in exchange is a bond, okay? This can have 30 years duration, 15 years duration, 10 years duration, 1 year duration, depends. So when you're a company, you go to a market, and that market is the financial market, and what you do in that market is you issue bonds, obligations. You will be forced to pay them. And like any obligation, it has a term limit, and it has an interest rate. Yeah? That's all. So I go there and I say, well, who's putting money? You're going to sit for a little while, or you can stay standing at 100%. So the key question for all of you will be, when people are looking at Mexico, they will be looking at where are they going to be placing the portfolio investment. Are they going to place it in what's called the market of debt? Or are they going to be placing the money in what? In stocks. Okay, if you bought Apple stock, Apple the company, not apples the food, okay? 6 months ago, the value of the Apple stock in the market was roughly $700. Yeah? It went up. If you buy it today, yesterday it fell 12%. If you buy it today, it's going to be up around $590 or so. So if you made an investment in Apple 6 months ago, and you want to cash today your stocks, you lost a lot of money. Okay? But this is a stock, and the stock fluctuates in the exchange. Okay? But this is the other kind of investments I can make if I am a portfolio investor. I can invest in what? I can invest in debt, or I can invest in property, if you wish, in stock. I become a shareholder. So I'm investing really in shares, yeah, of that company. These are my two basic type of investments. Okay. What we're saying here is, these people who came in a period of 9 months, January, September of the year 2012,
invested in positive terms 57 billion in Mexico, either debt or shares. Okay? Now, what it's going to say to me here is, where was that located? And that's why it's split between public sector and private sector. Okay? So people coming from outside will look at Mexico and say, where do I want to invest? Well, I want to invest in Mexico. Why do I want to invest in Mexico? Because the country risk is low. Okay? This country risk is, as I said last time, the difference between the equivalent bond or whatever of the USA government and what you will be requesting from a Mexican bond with the same maturity dates, and you will say, okay, whereas I'm willing to lend to the United States government at the rate of 1.95, last time I told you 125. Today in the morning, the country risk of Mexico was 127 basis points. Okay? Because that also changes with perception. So last week it was 125. This week, well, sorry, Wednesday was 125. Friday is 127. So the difference of these 2 basis points means, whereas before I was willing to give you 195 plus 125, I'm giving you now 125 plus 127. A little bit more expensive, okay? This is the country risk. And there is a place called the emerging markets base, or the index, where you can see that, okay? Now, what's happening to you is, you have to look at all these things and then you come to a decision. This country is a country where I want to invest. Why? Yamel was saying something which is important. Because the Mexican government bonds equivalent are at about 4.5. Okay? This is the interest rate on the basic one-day exchange that the Banco de Mexico is stating as the basic interest rate in our country. Any interest rate in Mexico is going to be higher than that. This is the lowest that there will be. This is the benchmark that's used in Mexico. Okay? In the money market, as it's called, the market for money, where I put money. Okay, now, I have 4.5. 195, 4.5, there is a big difference. This is interesting. Even taking my whole risk, I'm still making more. So I can absorb the risk, I can absorb the payment, and I can see this is great. The key question for me is going to be, what happens to the exchange rate? We have a floating exchange rate. You know what that means? Yeah? Okay. That means I have no idea what the exchange rate is going to be any single day of the year. Okay? It will depend on market conditions, on how much is traded and going on. But if I'm looking at this balance of payments, and what I'm looking at is positive results, then what I will be thinking is everything is okay, I'm going to invest there. I can teach you how to use this thing and everything at this point. I dedicated myself about 5 years to that. But one of the key things is, because I can see a solid country and I can see a solid balance of payments, then I'm going to make it. But one of the key questions I'm going to ask is, what is the debt situation of this country? If the debt situation of this country is one, where 35% of GDP is the level of the total debt, then this is a very sound country. Remember the thing about the fundamentals? This is a fundamental, okay? But fundamentally, I can see that there is 35% of GDP as the total amount of debt of that country. More interesting then should be, how much is the interest payments on that debt? Okay. And so I want to check how much do they have to pay. So what is the interest rate that you will consider a debt of 35% of GDP should be paying? Remember, the United States is 100%, Spain is over 100%. So we are one of the lowest in the world in terms of debt to GDP ratio. Well, we should be one of the lowest in terms of interest rates. So even though we don't know, it won't be too difficult to think that if they are lending me at 4.5, my interest rate should be somewhere between this and 8%. This is guesswork, okay? I'm just guessing. I don't have the data in my hands, but it's not too difficult for me to think. If I have 35% debt, if the market is telling me that it's only 127, if my benchmark is 4.5, then the number should be somewhere between 4.5 and 8%. If I'm going to exaggerate, 10%. Okay, 10% of 35%, which implies Mexico only needs somewhere between 3 and 3.5% of GDP to service its debt. Okay, think on a personal basis. That implies out of every peso I give you, you cannot dispose of 3.5 cents because you have to pay those as service of your debt. Do we have to pay our debt, the principal? No. That's what the markets are for. What I do in the market is I just roll over my debt. Yeah? And if I'm smart, and if I'm solid, if everybody looks at me like this guy really pays well, then I can roll over with two advantages. I can extend the maturity period of my debt, and I can reduce the interest payments because I can reduce the interest rate. Okay. Many of the things that you will see here are all those transactions, okay? And so what you see here is what happens in terms of the portfolio investment, what happens in terms of other kind of investments that are being made in this place. Many of these situations depend also on what is the situation of the public sector vis-a-vis the IMF, the World Bank, the institutions that have this situation. In the end, all I know is going for 9 months, only 2.5 billion went out of Mexico in money. Okay? If 2.5 billion went out in money, that means that I should be looking at a country that is very solid. Okay. They only need 2.5 billion, let me put it that way, in loans to be able to withstand the situation. Okay. Because in the end, this is the cuenta corriente, okay? The current account balance of the balance of payments. Now that's why it's so important that you understand balance of payments, particularly you, because you are going to be working in international business. And you have to look at these elements and say, is this a country where I can invest or is not a country where I can invest? Is this a country where I will have fluctuations to the exchange rate or not, depending on the strength of this current account. So that was a very good thing that you brought it, okay? Now, go ahead.
The question, why the account of Banco de Mexico is always in zero?
You'll have me there. Because Banco de Mexico is really not investing or getting invested, okay? They are the bank that provides all the resources. Okay. But the one thing that you will see in Banco de Mexico is that they have another job to do. And so the biggest problem they are going to be facing, okay, in the end, they are not supposed to be playing the market, so they don't invest and they are not invested on, okay? This is not a commercial bank, it's Banco de la Nación, this is the country's bank, okay? But the one thing that you will see for this bank is, depending on what happens to the reserves, one of the biggest problems that we'll be facing is if we are increasing reserves too fast, if we have too many dollars coming into the market, and those dollars transform themselves into pesos, because what do you do with dollars? I'm going to give you $1,000. What do you do with it?
Buy.
Buy what? So whatever. But what is the legal currency in Mexico? Okay, so the first thing you will do is you will exchange. Okay. Once you exchange, then you are increasing the monetary base of Mexico. Because what you are doing is you brought dollars from outside and you change them for pesos. As you change them for pesos, you want your pesos. So someone has to give you the pesos. The only one who can give you pesos is Banco de Mexico. So what they will do is they will print pesos. Yeah? Otherwise, that's all they do, yeah, print. Well, no. They print the pesos, they get your dollars, and then they have to do something. If they only did that, what will happen to the monetary base of Mexico?
It's going to be really big because there's going to be a lot of money in the circulation. So
Exactly.
they have to put bonds in the market to take out the pesos.
So as part of the monetary policy, what they have to do, they have to do what is called sterilization of the money, okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to go and they're going to place
Bonds.
bonds so that you buy those, or they will have to retire the dollars in terms of pesos, okay? Now the problem is they are collecting dollars and the interest rate on dollars is 1.95. They are paying for pesos, and as they want to take away the pesos, they have to pay 4.5. The difference between this and this is a loss for the central bank, which is not reflected here. It is reflected in the balance accounts of Banco de Mexico. And so what you're already seeing is Banco de Mexico having tremendous losses of these transactions. Because they get dollars, which can produce for them 1.95 or even zero if they don't do anything with them. But they have to pay for pesos so they can bring the pesos out, and they have to pay a minimum for 4.5. The difference between this and this, 2 points, is the amount of money they lose. So imagine if they are sterilizing 56, 57 billion, they are losing 100 billion pesos. That's a lot of money. So if you go to the balance account of Banco de Mexico, as any institution, as any banking institution, you will see that they lose money. So who has to capitalize Banco de Mexico then? The government. Okay? And this is not a class, okay, but this is where you will see all those transactions going on. And it's a very complex and very interesting combination of what we need to see. And this whole head of monetary policy, which is very attractive if you like that. If you're going financial business, then you have to understand all these things.
But if they lose weight, are they keeping giving these bonds?
Because the role of the bank, this is not a commercial bank, and the role of the bank is to control inflation. And in order to control inflation, they have to establish a combination where they will be sterilizing the amount of pesos that will be in the market, so that you can have only an amount of pesos sufficient for the transactions that will take place in the Mexican economy without creating inflation. Okay? So your problem there is different. Your problem as a central banker is GDP is going to grow 4%. Okay, this is what is called real GDP. Okay? And then, what is the inflation rate you want to have? I mean, this is oversimplification, okay? This is pretty much
The same.
4, okay? 4%. This implies, again, this is oversimplification, but just for the sake of simplicity. This implies that the increase in the amount of money in the economy should be no larger than 8%. Okay? And if I'm getting all this money coming, and that implies that it's going to be 10%, because every time I change dollars into pesos, I have to give pesos, and then I'm creating pesos in the market. But because there are so many dollars coming, that would be the equivalent of increasing from 8 to 10% the amount of pesos in the economy, then I have to sterilize this difference. Okay? And that means I need to go and buy pesos in the market to bring them out of circulation at the tune of 2%. Now, of course, we're talking percentages here, but the GDP of Mexico is huge. Okay? So the problem is, every time I do that, I lose money. But that's my job. Because I am not a bank for profit. As I mentioned about the university, we're a non-profit institution. So Many people will ask me, why do you keep investing in more classrooms, better this, better that? What you will start seeing soon is those are no longer going to be with us. We're going to have now surround sound, you know, so that we can have better sound. And we're trying to embed something called blackboards without blackboards, so that we can write in the wall. This is just my crazy thing, but, you know, but in this part, I need to sterilize, okay? Because otherwise inflation goes 2 points higher. And then I won't have 4, I will have 6%. But my mandate as Central Bank of Mexico is inflation. So if this was my objective, I have to do everything to keep it that objective. Okay? That's all. You are teaching my class, that's nice.
Well, for the current account, it can be seen that we export
Goods and services.
yeah, goods and services. So we're exporting more goods, and it's shown here with the 2 billion than we do in services. So that means that, as I said before, like we have a lot of raw material to export. However, I think it doesn't make sense, maybe like if we export like oil, imagine like the, how do you say, barrel?
Barrel.
Barrel, maybe at, I don't know really how much is it, but maybe then we import it at like higher, so in a higher, we pay more to import, like we all transport and everything, so that doesn't make sense. Well, I think.
But let me just try to understand that part. The oil balance, that's what you're talking about, yeah? We are producers of oil.
But here, yeah.
We are producers of oil. And we send oil to the United States where it is transformed into gasoline. And then we import gasoline. And the difference between gasoline and oil makes what?
Well, like what I think is that Mexico should also focus more like in the manufacturing and transforming sector, not only focus in the commodity, which I think a commodity, it's not good for a country because they...
You are a company, yeah? You are a company. Think about this, you guys, because you have to think this way. Oil is what I have in the ground, yeah? It costs me, I'm not sure anymore, okay, but this is memories from where I was there, okay. It will cost me approximately, let's say, just for the sake of the exercise, but it will cost me $4 per barrel to extract, put on the barrel, and export the oil, okay? If I'm going to do gasoline, I have to invest $5 billion in a plant that really do the whole processing of the oil into gasoline. So the key question for us is going to be, where do I get more money? In the exports of oil or in the transformation of gasoline? As things stand right now, it makes a lot more sense for Mexico, for any company, to extract oil, export oil, than to try to transform the oil in Mexico into gasolines. You know why? Because refineries are very inexpensive now. They are cheap. You can buy them very, very low price. Cheap, really. So this nonsense about making a refinery in Hidalgo is exactly that, nonsense. It would make more sense for the Mexican government to go and buy a refinery in the United States, send all the oil into the United States, transform the oil in the United States, and bring it back as gasoline to Mexico, than invest in the refinery in Hidalgo. I'm going to give you one. So, that's a question that you as business people will have to ask yourselves. Where is it that is more convenient for me to do 1 stage, 2 stage, 3 stage, 4 stages of the production process. So if Pemex were really a private company, what Pemex will be thinking is, it is convenient for me to extract the oil in Mexico, put it into barrels, send it to the United States, and transform it in gasoline and bring it back to Mexico. In the balance of payments, that transaction is going to show as exports of oil, imports of gasoline. In the account balance of Pemex, this is called intra-trade. And so as a company, they don't care. Yeah? They set up a company in the United States called Pemex International. And what Pemex International does is it gets the oil, transforms it, and sends it back to Mexico. And the cost is lower for them of producing than if they do the opposite. Inter-trade makes sense, outsourcing makes sense, offshoring makes sense, as long as I can see this process. Balance of payments. It's going to look bad. We're importing a lot of gasolines. And that's very, very expensive because gasoline is a manufactured condition. Oh yeah, why don't you then set up shop in the United States? Guess what? We do have Pemex International, okay? And makes a lot of money. And it is in the United States. And it has a refinery in the United States. It's in Houston. And that's where we import things from. But the deputies and the senators, they keep discussing things which are fine, discuss it, but this is the best possible combination that Pemex can do. Okay? So we have to be careful about those. I'm sorry. When we look at these things, we have to be very careful what is better for the country, but also what is better for the company, okay? And if I'm a company, what is better for me is where do I make more profits? Because in the end, I'm going to be judged by the profits I make. My shares will go higher if I make more profits. My shares, as Apple is showing to us right now, are going lower if my profits are not what the market expects. Mind you, Apple won a lot of money. It shows that they didn't make as much as we thought they would. And therefore, the price of Apple shares went down 12% yesterday. If I'm an investor and I see Apple losing my money 12% in one day, I'm quitting Apple. Yeah? I'm going to UDLAP over there. You were asking.
The question I'm going to ask is like, why the government wait? Like, for example, 20 years ago, maybe it was a good invest in refiner. But why the government wait and why it doesn't?
Because the government is made of politicians, okay, not business people. And so, what is my frame of reference if I'm a politician?
That people like people do.
Because what is going to happen to me? Am I going to be facing an election or not? Okay. When is the next election taking place? 2015 if you're thinking federal, okay? So if I'm thinking federal, my next election is the Chamber of Deputies 2015. Let's see. My frame is 1 year and a half. It will take a lot of time to see all these things happening. But then who's the owner of Pemex?
The government?
Yeah. So this lie that they tell us, I even told that when I was in government, is Pemex is of the Mexican people, lied. It belongs to the government in turn. Who appointed the new head of Pemex? Yeah. Who appointed the previous one? And the previous one to that one? The president. And the previous one to that one? The president. Who the president? What president? What's the name of that guy? Depends who the president was at the time. And so here I am directing a company which is the largest company in Mexico, one of the 4 largest in the oil industry in the world. And who's my boss? And in particular, who? Is the government. Who? The president, yeah. So do you really believe that anyone cares about what the stock change is? Have you ever seen shares of Pemex in the market? No, there are no shares of Pemex in the market. And therefore, am I going to be responding to economic incentives? No. What am I going to be responding to? Political incentives. And so I'm the president of Mexico. You are the director of Pemex because I appointed you, okay? And you go there and you tell the workers of Pemex, guys, you have to be productive. Out of the 60,000 working in Pemex, we only need 20,000. We're going to fire 40,000, which is pretty much the situation. Next day, you are without a job. Why? Because the workers of Pemex are going to start a strike, and as they're going to start a strike, the President of the Republic says, wait a minute, I don't want this political trouble. So who's the one to blame? Yeah, so thank you very much, goodbye, I'm going to send you some ambassador to Nicaragua. And so what happens to you is you don't move for economic incentives, okay, as much as you move for political incentives. You have to realize that because it's very important, okay? Many of the problems that we're facing right now is people don't understand what is the kind of incentives that you are reacting to. Now, the logic would be, if it is an enterprise, let it react to enterprise incentives. Stocks, and what's the value of the share of stocks? What's the profits they make? What's this, what's that? But we don't do that, because every time that I am a politician and I own a political company, meaning by that a company which is the property of the government, I'm going to be forcing that company to react to political incentives. And it makes sense, because that's what's important to me. The good of the people, yeah, that too.
So, I read this article in The Economist that said that Peña Nieto wanted to change Pemex and open it for, so that's not true?
Oh, yeah, that's true. I don't know how he wants to change it, but yeah. The question is, it's not what I want, it's what I can. So the nice thing is, at least I'm beginning to wish to do changes that will be positive. We have been trying to do that for the past 24 years. Okay? We started saying that with our friend Salinas de Gortari. Then Cedillo really wanted. Fox did want it. I was playing you a personal anecdote on that one. And then Calderon. And finally now Peña Nieto. Let's see if it happens. Hopefully it will. Fox is president of Mexico, okay? In our program, the economic program that we designed for him, it was very clear that we should be not really privatizing Pemex, but allowing private investment in Pemex. So we went out and he made a speech about the 3rd day of his government, or 4th day of his government. The next day, he was calling me on speakers. He said, you know, how can we change this thing? Because I never said what I said. Okay? Because the political pressure was just incredible. And there was no way that we can solve that problem at that time. Now, personally, I think we could have, but I was not the president, okay? So it is a question of, do you really believe that you can take the heat? Heat like in hot, and heat like in, okay? And the majority of us politicians come to the conclusion, no. And we chicken out. So my guess is, yes, there is a lot of that, and probably will be some positive movement in terms of transforming the company, because it has happened now for the past 24 years, slowly, and we're talking about that. If it happens, it's going to be better for the country, yes. Okay? Would I vote for that? Yes. But if you were Andrés Manuel López Obrador, would you vote for that? Okay. And if you were Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas, would you? Okay. So you have all this segment of society who should not vote for that. Is it rational? I don't think so. But the question is, have you ever tried to sit with 2,000 left-wing believers and tell them that it makes a lot of sense for them and the rest of the world to privatize Pemex? When you do that, you will see the pressures, okay? Slowly it's happening, okay? And it will happen, but it will take a long, long time.
So
I'm sorry, I keep you, stay there long.
so the oil politicals are the same than 20 years ago? I understand that.
Let me see. Here we are in the United States. This is December 29. The 31st you have the fiscal cliff happening. And you are still discussing whether you will or you will not. Yes, all politicians are the same, okay? So in the end, they came to their senses. Why? Because what they thought at that point is, if I remain in my position, I have more to lose than to gain as a politician, and therefore I switch. But did they solve the problem? They just threw it back till March. Okay, January, this week, it's already been approved. Same discussion with different name. Now is the debt limit of the United States government. Now it's not the fiscal cliff, now it's the debt limit. What are they doing right now? Voting. What is going to happen? They're going to push this from March till May. My God, solve the problem, man. You know what it is, but I need more time. So what they have been doing in the United States is just kicking the ball off. Okay, so you're now in May. I can almost bet you that we're going to be in May and they're going to be kicking it back. But you're not solving the problem. Okay? You solve a part of the problem, yeah, because in the fiscal cliff, you didn't allow certain things to happen. And they're already resolved in terms of the taxes. But they are there.
I just want your opinion. I wonder sometimes if, for example, Andres Manuel knows the benefits of privatizing, and he just wants to keep his idea just for the people to see him as that kind of leader, or if he doesn't have any idea.
Me too, I wonder. I know Andres Manuel quite well, okay? We're good friends. And last time I saw him, I was in an airport, and we just ended up talking for a while. I think Andres Manuel has the right heart, okay? I mean, he does feel and he wants to change and help. At the same time, he doesn't necessarily have the best advisors in terms of what it should be, but he is not even willing to listen to them, okay? I mean, to the good advisors. So it's a very complicated matter because some people do believe things. I think Andres Manuel believes a few things. And then it's very difficult to negotiate with people who believe, because if you believe, you believe. And it's fair. So I had a discussion with Colin Powell at one point, okay? And so Colin says to me, Mexico has to go this way. I said, Colin, depends. Show me that there are weapons of mass destruction, and we will vote. And the guy says, well, I have the information, but I cannot show it to you. Okay, don't show it to me, but then I don't believe you. Because I talked to Hans, and Hans, at the time was the negotiator for the United Nations, tells me that he has found nothing in Iraq. So sorry. And then he looks at me and says, well, you have to trust me. I said, no. Let me tell you one thing. I'm a Catholic, okay? And so, because I'm a Catholic, I have certain beliefs. One of them is that the Virgin Mary was virgin, okay, after she gave birth to Christ. Now, if I rationalize that, I think it's impossible, okay? But this is faith. Either I believe it or I don't. I mean, if I am a Catholic, then I believe it. It's a question of faith. It's not a question of rationality. So otherwise, that's the problem of whoever rationalizes too many things, okay? So I said, so sorry. I believe that Virgin Mary was virgin. Believe, faith. I don't believe you, okay? Show me. It's going to be a very difficult discussion with me on this issue, okay? because I believe. So if you come to me and says, well, you know, this, I'm going to say, all of that you're saying to me, I know absolutely is rational. But this is the difference. I believe. It's a different thing. It's a different story. I'm not going to fight you because you don't believe. That's your personal decision. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm saying whoever tells me that he doesn't believe, it's fine. I mean, this is your decision. My decision is to believe. Yours is not to believe. So why fight about something where you and I know that we're not going to come to terms? Because if you are a rationalist, then, funnily enough, you're equivalent to what I'm saying within your own belief, because your belief is rationality. So you will not accept something which is not rational. Well, I will not accept rationality in this. Because if I accept that, then I'm not Catholic. But I want to be Catholic for whatever reason, okay? We can discuss that in coffee, but not here. So in many ways, when you find a person like Andres Manuel who has beliefs in certain things, it's difficult to negotiate. The only way will be to show the difference. Okay, what I'm trying to do with you is to tell you, be very careful not to jump to conclusions. Analyze and take that decision after you have the evaluation. Okay? And so, if you simply see this here, you're going to make a lot of assumptions. What is very important is you start making this analysis. Now, is it politically speaking better to put a refinery in Hidalgo rather than in Houston? Yes. Does it make sense for the country to do that? No. So let's discuss why. And there you're going to find something which is very difficult. For the people in Hidalgo that would have gotten a work and a job building the refinery, it was more important to have the refinery now than the benefits from this process 5 years from now. So that group is what we called the nationalists, okay? The ones who are going to say, that's the famous ISMs that they put you there, isms. This is when it's going to happen, because then I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, my personal situation is going to be affected, and therefore this is wrong. How do you discuss with someone that's telling you that? Very difficult. Yeah? But you have to be rational in these things. Yes. This is not faith, okay? Whatever you're going to be doing in your lives is not faith. Science will teach you a few things. If you don't behave well, if you don't protect yourselves, you know what's going to happen, okay? No. Faith tells me that it won't happen. It will, okay? So be careful. Be careful, okay? Be careful here. If I walk to you and I say, just because I am who I am, you should believe me that this is going to happen, then you should immediately question that and say, let me check. How do we demonstrate that this is true? Okay, the only way that we can demonstrate that this is true is if we go through the whole process. Because what I just put on the blackboard doesn't really necessarily has to be true, okay? So you have to learn to question things and then work out the process to reach the best conclusion, hopefully the right conclusion. This is what you're here for, okay? You didn't come to university just to be given information. You came to the university to think, to learn to think, to question. Because this is going to be the rest of your lives. You're going to be questioning. You don't have to do what she did, okay? You have to go and say, let me check if this is true or not. Now, she has gone through a very elaborate process. So the question I have for you, because we have to go, is corn or not something we export? No? How did you came to that conclusion?
I assume, but I learned
No.
that.
You assumed before, that's fine. How did you came to the conclusion that we don't?
Oh, because I did some research,
Okay.
and yeah, so we don't. And actually what I found out was that because of NAFTA, United States produces more corn than Mexico, and also, like, since United States, they are big producers and stuff, so like the small people who produce corn in Mexico couldn't compete like with the massive producers in United States, so that's why we...
Okay. I'm going to make a proposal to you. I want to thank you because this helped me a lot for other things that were not necessarily what I had in mind. Please sit down. If any of you is interested that we go a little bit more into balance of payments, what it means, how it does, I'll be more than happy to hold coffee with you. You can come to my office. I have a nice place where we can sit and have coffee. It will be completely informal. It's not part of the class, so I don't want it. But if you want to do that, send me a memo and I will be happy to find a date so that we can sit together, whoever wants to come, and discuss balance of payments and what it means. Because it is important for you in international business to understand what does it mean, what is the information I'm going to get from there, okay? But it has nothing to do with this course. So I spent too much of the time in this one.
Do we send you the email to Ana Maria or to...
If you want answers very quickly, Ana Maria is faster than I am, okay? But you have my email, you can send to me. The thing is, Ana Maria in many ways controls my life. So it's a better source of results. Okay. Let me go very quickly, and I'm sorry I'm going to keep you 10 minutes more than. Okay, there is not a clear definition of what the product nationality is. Most goods are made in the world. Okay, this is this. I may be importing gasoline from the United States, but if I'm importing the gasoline from the Mexican Pemex in the United States, that doesn't make any difference, okay? I'm making a lot of money anyway. And as government, since I'm the owner of PMI, that's the name of Pemex International, and Pemex, I'm making the money anyway. And I'm using the money to finance the budget. So whether I make the money by exporting to Mexico from the United States, or whether I make the money exporting into the United States is irrelevant. In the end, if I'm the same company and I belong to the government, I'm making money for the government. And the government uses that money to finance its budget. But as a Mexican, I know it says, we should have our refinery in Mexico. Fine. You can go with López Obrador and do whatever you want, but it won't make any difference in the end. Oh yeah, there is one difference. We are hiring and employing Americans in the United States. Yeah. So let's explore the work. Yeah. Domestic and international markets intersect. There is no longer a domestic and international market. It's the same market. If I'm globalized, I'm globalized. And so my domestic market is subject to international market conditions. And therefore, I have to learn to see the markets as the same market. If I'm not competitive in my market, that means that I probably am not competitive in the international market. And therefore, my standard has to be competitive at the international level, okay? Not at domestic level, because what I want is a company that is competitive here, there, and everywhere. What I want is a professional that will come out of this university that will be competitive here, in Russia, or in the United States, or China, if that's going to be the case in the end. The exchange rates are important, because what's going to happen to me is, I'm going to be making an investment in the Mexican market. My sales in the Mexican market are going to provide me with pesos, but I will be reporting my final results to American stockholders. If I do that, I need to send the message how much money I'm making in dollar terms, not in peso terms. Because of that, exchange rate will be important in my business. Yeah, except if I'm a multinational company, I have a problem. I have to look at the exchange rates, not the exchange rate, of all the places where I do business. Because as those exchange rates move, my profits or my costs, if you wish, will move. Okay? What's happening right now in Mexico? About 28% of the profit that the market in Mexico, the stock market, is reporting as profits in dollar terms, comes from the fact that the Mexican peso has appreciated. paying 8%. So what's happening right now is it's cheaper for you guys to go and have vacations in the United States than it was 6 months ago. Because the exchange rate went from 13 to 12.60. And therefore, those 40 cents are cents that you can spend more in dollar terms. Well, the opposite happens to a company. It makes investment here, makes money, and then it takes the money away. If they can buy dollars at 12.60, they are making a larger profit than if they had to buy dollars at 13 or 13.50. Exchange rates are important, okay, in the whole process. So you cannot avoid that. That brings you into the financial markets, into the markets for money. As more and more countries intervene in first production, then the trade rules need to be comprehensive, and therefore the complexity has increased in the legal framework under which trade operates. This is very important for this course. This is the reason why we're studying this course, okay? Because I need trade agreements. I need rules that I know will be subject to international, not national, decision making. The President of Mexico cannot change the rules of NAFTA. He can change the head of Pemex, but he cannot change the rules of NAFTA. And therefore, if I'm going to get into an investment in Mexico, it's not because I trust the President of Mexico, it's because I trust NAFTA and the rules that are imposed by NAFTA. And therefore, I need a legal framework under which I am going to be operating, because that's what will give me certainty in terms of my investments. And the last thing is, as this is happening, a company requires all those rules in the overall context. The best would be WTO, World Trade Organization rules. Gee, but the best doesn't happen. Okay? So we're going to be moving into regional treaties, which is the best thing that is happening right now. You already saw this, and I will send it to you. These are the questions. I want first answers very quickly from you. So let's start with you again. Give me your name, please.
Media.
Is NAFTA good or bad for Mexico?
Good. I think it's good. It has.
So why do you think it's bad? If you think it's good, it's because you think maybe bad. Why?
Why do I think it will be bad?
No? Then never say I think. Say it's good.
Well, it's good. Yes.
This is another thing I want to teach you. Okay? One of the things that one has to do is, it's good. You know, the worst thing that people say in Spanish is creo que. ¿Crees o estás seguro? Yes or no? But sometimes you say, I'm not sure. Okay, so that this knows why you may not be sure. Okay? So we're going to answer that one. Think about it. Next class, we're going to be discussing these answers to the beginning. For companies wishing to make business in Mexico, is it good or bad? Good. Yeah, because it gives them a framework of rules. What have been the benefits of Mexico for Mexico in the past 10 years? What do you think is the most important benefit coming from NAFTA?
Competition.
Yeah, that's true.
Mexico has already an open economy.
Competition. But in addition, how does that translate? When we were looking at the balance of payments, what was happening? One of the things you saw was foreign direct investment. Where is it coming to? Remember the pie?
United States.
Yeah, it's coming from the United States, coming from these countries. Where is it going to? What sector?
Manufacturing.
Okay. So one of the things that you will learn from this is, because we opened the economy, because we went into NAFTA, we are becoming a manufacturing country, which is very different from other countries, which are still producing agricultural goods as exports. We are becoming a manufacturing country. So technology is important. Training of people is important, because we are becoming that. And finally, and this I want you to think about, don't answer this one. An industrial policy to support massive firms with subsidies and trade restrictions. Is it necessary for making firms to become competitive? Okay. We leave it here. We start with this. Thank you very much.